Mark here for WhiskyWhistle. Johnnie Walker Red Label. Is this a scotch that you should have on hand? How about the Johnnie Walker Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish? How do these two compare? Check out the Red Label versus Red Label here on WhiskyWhistle. Hey everybody, Mark here at WhiskyWhistle, your wise choice in independent whiskey and spirits reviews. Bringing you whiskey review number 257, Johnnie Walker Red Label versus Red Label. Well, we've got the standard Red Label over here on my right, and we've got the Johnnie Walker Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish, which is inspired by the Red Label on my left. Let's get them poured, we'll compare them, and we'll talk about these two whiskeys, these two scotches. Are these whiskeys you should be getting, or should you just leave it behind at the shop? Well, let's check it out, shall we? And I'll pour that into my nice Johnnie Walker Keep Walking nosing glasses. Now, this is not typically a whiskey that somebody would drink neat and be nosing and tasting. This is a whiskey that's generally used for mixing. Now, when I tasted it again recently after a long period of not having tried it, what I can say to you is I can see why it would do well in cocktails. It's got some astringency, it's got some peppery character, it's got your typical Scotch, kind of a smoky, little bit of a peaty, wood smoke, sort of a heart in there that will lend itself to making all sorts of cocktails that sort of smoky, peppery character is needed. All right, let's get that Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish poured. This is very interesting. Let me just read this to you. Blender's notes, and the blender, by the way, is Jim Beverage. Malt and grain whiskeys, including now closed Port Dundas, aged in first fill bourbon casks. That's very interesting. Finished in rye casks. Extremely interesting. Anyway, so here we have a blend whose casking is all first fill bourbon. That's pretty remarkable. Not only that, but they also then finished it in rye casks. Now, it doesn't say for how long. Oh, it's here. Yep, sorry. Finished for up to 6 months in ex-rye casks. There you go. That is definitely a substantial period of time, and it certainly offers a very unique flavor profile. So let's check that out. We'll get that one poured. And I'd say it's quite a bit darker. And although these both definitely have caramel added, caramel meaning E150, I believe that the Blender's Batch will have much less because of not only the first fill bourbon casks, but also the rye casks that they're finished in. Now, what kind of rye cask could that be? Well, I've got two ideas. Either it's going to be Crown Royal, or some of the rye casks that they have, or it might be the Bullet, the straight rye. So who knows? All right, well, let's get these checked out. First of all, we'll check out the color. Let me get that set up here. I'll put the standard red over here. See if I can fumble my way through that. And I'll put that Red Rye Finish on my left. That's, I guess, your right. Okay, so what do you think about the color of these? You know, pretty much a standard whiskey color. Now, I believe I am correct in saying that the Red Rye Finish is a little bit richer in color. And to my eyes, yeah, about one shade to the darker sort of amber hue. Okay, and very much like the standard 80 proof bourbons that you'd find on shelves in USA. And even I'm looking through the light passing through this paper back here, and the Red Rye Finish has a bit more of an orange tint to it than the yellow coming from the standard Red Label. All right, interesting. And we'll compare the legs also. By the way, these are both 40% ABV. And I'm guessing they're both roughly about the same age. And, well, Well, how old is it? How old is Red Label? Is it exactly 3 years old? I have a feeling it's not. I think it's probably 4 or 5 years, thereabouts. There might be some 3-year-old in there. As I just, oh well, I spilt some on my jeans. My jeans will smell very nice now. Okay, that's not easy to do with a glass in each hand. Okay, so let's see if we can get some leg action going on here. Do you like a little bit of leg action? Okay, there we go. Now, certainly visible legs with both of them. It appears as though the Red Rye Finish is a little bit more drizzly, but even the standard Red Label actually hangs on the glass quite nicely. So kudos to Diageo and to Johnnie Walker for making something substantial that will clearly have a bit of mouthfeel. Check that out one more time. It's really hard to do that two-handed. Where is FQ? Where's Food Quig? Get over here and give us that anaconda. All right. So the first one's dropped down quickly, but then watch what happens as the secondary legs really take a nice slow drizzle downwards. There it is. So that's really going very slowly, whereas the Red Label's already down to the bottom. So I guess that would be that little bit of extra soluble something coming from those very expensive casks. Okay. All right, now then, I'll start by nosing Red Label. Then we'll get on to the Red Rye Finish. And I'll put a drop of water in both after that and see what happens. Okay? Then finally we'll compare them one by one. And I'll try and keep this brief so that, so you can get on with the rest of your day. Don't forget to subscribe to WhiskyWhistle by clicking right over here, okay? Click that little round icon. There you go. Did you do it? Great. Okay, so standard Red Label from Johnnie Walker, a blended Scotch whiskey, 40% ABV. The nose is a little bit sour, a little bit sweet. I can tell it's going to be dry. There is a little bit of young spirit type of a scent coming through there. But there's also what I can recognize as some Talisker, some Kulila, and it reminds me quite a bit of grainy Glenkinchie. And some nice sweet Cragganmore, I believe, is probably in there. Pencil shavings, wood smoke, a little bit of peat, a little bit of honey. A little bit of roughness. So it's 40% ABV. It should be fairly easy to smell, but when you take a good waft, it really singes your nostrils a little bit. And I believe that's that younger spirit, the 3 or 4 year old Scotch whiskey, whether it's the grain, whether it's the malt. There's something that needs a little bit more age there to be a nice whiskey for nosing and sipping. I'm getting bookshelves, which in fact I like as a nosing note. And the fall foliage, long after things have turned brittle and brown, and you're walking in the woods and you get that sort of a very unique scent. I can't really describe that other than it smells like brown crackly leaves and twigs that are snappy and easily broken. All right, anyway, on to the palate. Cheers, everybody. Well, it's quite sweet. Honey and pepper, a little bit of peat, a little bit of wood smoke. This also is just slightly waxy. The grain whiskey, I would imagine actually that the grain whiskey, which a lot of people have take offense to, which they shouldn't, because well, hello, it's like bourbon. It is just aged in different casks and not virgin oak like American whiskey has to be. American straight bourbons have to be. Bourbons altogether, sorry. A little bit peppery on the palate, but not in an offensive way. Short finish, although you're left with the pepper and the dryness after you've swallowed. A little bit of the sweet sourness as well. It's actually making me salivate, which is interesting. So you're talking about, you know, $30 whiskey, 20 pounds, I guess, in the UK. It's light, easy drinking, honey, bit of pepper, bit of smoke, as I mentioned. A little bit of fruit, just generic fruitiness. A little hint of citrus in there, a little hint of apples and pears. And a few raisins thrown in there too. This is actually a little bit more sherried than I would have expected. So it's actually got a fair amount of sherry. It's smoky, and if you want to compare it to other blended Scotch whiskies, it's not as smoky as Teacher's, and it is not as fruity as, say, Grant's. And easy to drink. Nothing rough about it. It's young. It has a little bit of a gutsy character, and I can see how this is going to be very great in a cocktail. I'm gonna make sure I'm rolling. Am I rolling here? Gosh, I hope I'm rolling. Yes. Okay, how many YouTubers have done that before? Okay, now I'll add water to that right now. Just a couple drops. Maybe one more. And then we'll get on to the Red Rye Finish. Now, the Red Rye Finish, by the way, have you watched Trenny and C before? They just reviewed Red Rye Finish, I think, within the last couple of days. By the time I release that, it'll be about a week or a week and a half earlier. Anyway, check out their channel, Trenny and C. They are also Canadians, and they've got a bustling channel. Very impressive how big an audience that they've got. Much bigger than mine. I would say, boy, possibly triple in terms of their reach. So anyway, good job, gentlemen. All right, so the Red Rye Finish. Let's check out the nose. Distinct American high rye bourbon. Not quite a rye nose, but really smells like a high rye bourbon. And maybe something not recent, but something older, kind of like the 1980s style of bourbon. where you had a little bit more leathery notes, a little bit more of a bookshelf or furniture type of note coming through in those older bourbons. Now this smells certainly older, and it is very, very clean on the nose. I don't get that singy, nostril singeing sort of effect going on at all. And I think that could be because of the finishing. It also could be because of the first fill bourbon casks that it was matured in. So whether a bit of maturity or an improved wood influence, wood management as they call it, it's certainly a superior nose and something that I would like to smell. And I have, and you can see, I only bought this not long ago, maybe, I don't know, December, January, something like that. Anyway, sometime around then. This one I've had for quite a while, and, you know, clearly you can see where my preferences lie. There's a hint of that dusty rye in there, although it's kind of cloying and it's coming off more as I say, this kind of high rye bourbon kind of a scent. And keep in mind it's got first filled bourbon cask, so this totally makes sense. I'm getting cinnamon. I'm getting baked goods, like baked oatmeal cookies with raisins, ginger snaps, and yet also there's that little hint of peppery note, a little bit of wood smoke. You don't notice the peat as much here, so no, I'll save that for a bit later. All right, well, cheers again, everybody, and a big cheers to Trenny and C. Good job, boys. If you put this in a blind lineup, people would guess it were a bourbon, a high rye bourbon, and not a Scotch whiskey. That minty, dusty rye is coming through on the palate. Also pepper. And there's this leathery component that maybe that Port Dundas, I wonder how old is that component that they put in there. It also may have some older malts in it than the regular Red Label. Anyway, so this is definitely winning some points on the nose as well as the palate now. This tastes like whiskeys from a couple of decades ago. So if you are a lover of Johnnie Walker of old, you may want to pick up a bottle of this blender's batch. Very interesting. And the finish is quite long, especially that peppery, minty rye. It's very mouth coating. This is 40%, but it's acting more like about 43, maybe even 45%. This is 40%, right? Yeah, it's 40%. Oh, that's interesting. I never noticed that before. This says that the blending team includes somebody by the name of Emma Walker. Well, that's very interesting. Hello, Emma Walker. There's going to be a big retirement boom coming in the next decade. There's a lot of master distillers and blenders who are of an age where they may be thinking of retiring soon. Let's hope that they continue doing what they do great, or at the very least that they teach their successor all of the secrets. Okay. Now, where was I? I really do like that. When you swallow, that finish gives you a little bit of a nice warming, not quite a burn, but a nice warming effect. Peppery, a little bit of this minty rye. It's very, very lovely. Still very honeyed. Still a bit of this sweet raisin, but what you're adding here is a little bit of a leathery note, a little bit of this bookshelf, old furniture type of a scent. All right, let's add a bit of water to that one now. There. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'll compare these side by side. And if you are relatively new to whiskey, get out of the habit of just buying a bottle and finishing it and then buying another bottle. I can see how that makes sense from a budget standpoint, but from a pleasure standpoint, I would say get the bottle, finish half, then buy another bottle, and have the same quantity, but what will happen is you'll build up a bit of a selection. And when you're having them, when you're enjoying them, try them together so you can compare and contrast the tastes and scents. All right, so Red Label over here, Red Label Rye over here. Not much has changed. Maybe a little bit more pepper now. Still a little bit nostril singeing. How about the Red Rye Finish? Very, very bourbon-like. Lots of, maybe a little bit more rye coming through here now. There's a nice sweet sourness. There's a maltiness you don't really notice in the regular one. I mentioned pencil shavings, a little bit of cardboard. Wet cardboard. Oh, it's just, there's no competition here. I'm sorry, there's absolutely no competition here. Anyway, let's get on to the palate. We'll keep going, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. With water added, it's a little bit butterier. It's a little bit richer. I'm noticing the smoke a little bit more now, the peat. A little bit of raisin still, but anyway, just a very quite a different flavor from neat, and it's an improvement. I'm getting some. What's that called again? The Italian light almond, not the biscotti, but what's it called? Anyway, it's an almond cookie, and they're very light and crispy. And I'm getting something like that here. the finish is much drier than without water. And when you think about making a cocktail, what are you doing? You're adding ice, which is frozen water. You're adding some other things. I can see how this whiskey will really work well in a cocktail. As will this, but it'll be just very different, and it'll be more suitable to your typical cocktails made with bourbon or rye or high rye. This continues to smell a lot like a bourbon, like an older bourbon that's smokier and leatherier and more old books. A lovely balance of sweet and sour and pepper, bit of fruit. And the finish is still much, much longer than the regular Red Label. Final taste. Rich honey. That little bit of that that rye punch, that dusty rye also coming through with water. It's leaving my mouth very fresh, much like a high rye bourbon or a straight rye does. And I can feel it a bit on the sides of my cheeks, that kind of a slight prickliness. If you've had rye, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's got that definite rye essence here. So this is like a Scotch whiskey with a heart of rye. Very interesting. Okay, well, obviously, as you can tell, there's no contest here. The Red Rye Finish, the Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish, is heads and shoulders above in terms of quality, in terms of experience, and in terms of sippability. That being said, the standard Red Label is flavorful, it is drinkable, I can enjoy it sipping it. So in fact, I can definitely see myself getting a glass of this at a regular pub where they've only got a couple of blends and maybe a single malt or two for a much higher price. All right, on to the scoring then. What am I going to give for the Johnnie Walker Red Label, the standard bottle? What's that going to be? Well, folks, for Johnnie Walker Red Label, it's going to get 82 out of 100. Yes, you heard right. 82 out of 100 is the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Johnnie Walker Red Label. It is a great price. It's accessible everywhere. It'll do for sipping in a pinch. We'll call it in a pinch. When you're somewhere and that's all they've got. Go to a friend's place and you open up their liquor cabinet and all they've got is Red Label. Go for it. You'll enjoy it. Now, what about the Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish? This is a real delight for me. And well, I think what I'm going to do here for the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score, are you ready? The WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Johnnie Walker Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish is going to be 87 out of 100. Yes, you heard right. 87 out of 100 is the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Johnnie Walker Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish. It is complex. It is delicious. It is well-rounded. It's polished and pretty accessible. I'd say it's pretty accessible. 40%. It's inexpensive, and you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck with that one. All right. So 82 for the standard red and 87 for the Blender's Batch Red Rye Finish. Have you tried these? What are your thoughts? Good or bad? I'd love to hear them, okay? So leave me a comment down below. And before we wrap up, don't forget to click to subscribe right over here and join me on Patreon. Become a patron, get the Whiskey Whistle newsletter, get advanced screening, the Patreon Patron Priority Pass. You'll get about a day's advanced screening, ad-free, of my content. All right, does that sound good? Get in there and join up, okay? And just before we stop, another quick shout out to Dominic, a great patron and also a benefactor. I've still got a few to go. I think the next one is going to be the number 2, the Glengoyne 12-year 2004 vintage, 59.1%, cask 31. That's that one right there, isn't it? Yes, Glengoyne. All right, so thanks again, Dominic. And also shout outs to all of the patrons, Alan, Chris, and Tom, Aquavite, Dominic, Martin Colmer, OJ for Hire, and the Scotch Test Dummies. Anyway, thank you very much for your patronage. And to all of you, get in there, get on Patreon and become a patron. Get the Patreon Patron Priority Pass. Get the newsletter, okay? Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. That's going to be the Glengoyne. All right, that's number 2 here from Dominic. Okay, thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Whiskey Whistle. Be sure to subscribe. And don't forget to give this video a like and leave a comment down below. Be sure to stay tuned next time to join me, the host of the show, Mark, as I explore more whiskeys with you. Take care now, and we'll see you next time.